Millie, do you think we should start? Give me the high sign. Raise the roof. Hello, everybody. Exactly. Welcome, everyone. I'd call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. Excuse me, let me remove my hat. I left my computer at home. I apologize. Today is Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. It is 12:01. Today's business is to get a report from Marianne, our consultant, and Tim Cavazza, largely our consultants on the compensation study. So I'm just going to turn it over to Marianne.
Okay, great. Tim and Carol, can you folks hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Yep. All right, Carol needs to
Yeah,
unmute.
I can hear you
Okay,
also.
great.
I'm fine.
So just to provide a way of background, some time ago in negotiations with Council 94, a part of the negotiation was that an independent contractor would complete a compensation study to examine the classification architecture, compensation structure by conducting stakeholder interviews and independent research. The study shall be completed by and a report issued by June 12th, with June 30th, 2024, which has happened. The town hired Municipal Resources, Inc. We did go out for an RFQ. We received 5. The interviewing team consists of myself, Bethany Petrick, Mona Heltenline, and Charlene. We interviewed 2 of the vendors of the 5 that submitted, and we decided to go with Municipal Resource. Municipal Resource then did the compensation study. Carol, I'll turn it over to Carol to explain what happened with that and how she went about doing the study. And as the council all knows that we are still in negotiations with Council 94. I strongly advise the council to make sure that you stay within the guidelines of those negotiations and not get into negotiations during this discussion of today. Tim, do you want to add anything as counsel in that regard with the negotiations before we turn this over to Carol?
Yeah, I would echo that. The agenda item is to discuss and potentially act upon the salary study. Although the salary study is being used in a negotiation, this discussion should be focused on the salary study and not the negotiations, whether it's strategy, progress, future, or individual names to the extent that that's possible. So I know there is some overlap, but try to draw that line and keep the discussion focused on the salary study itself, if possible.
So at this point, Carol, do you want to start us off and explain the process you went through and the number of meetings and what you and your firm have done for this compensation study? I think the council, most of you have heard this when we had an executive session. I think it was back on February 1st. We had an hour-long executive session. But at this point, this is a public meeting, so she'll be reiterating a lot of stuff she said in that executive session.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Good afternoon. Pleased to present you with a report on the classification and compensation study we've been working on since actually last year for the town. The town did want to re-examine the responsibilities and the work performed and market pay rates for positions that were included in the study, along with a review of the benefits. I've met some of you before. I'm Carol Granfield, Senior Management Consultant and Director of Human Resource Services for Municipal Resources. Our company does specialize in services to meet all the needs of municipalities, and we've completed hundreds of projects such as this one that we completed for the town throughout New England. We conducted a classification and compensation study, which included both union and non-union positions and updated pay and classification plans that improves the system for compensating your employees on a fair and equitable basis. We also, as part of the study, developed an organizational chart and provided some performance appraisal options for the town. And I understand you're currently in union negotiations, and the union did provide input during the process. I'll be providing you with our final analysis of the positions and pay and benefits, which may be helpful to you. Typically, when we do studies such as this, towns as well as unions utilize some of the data for assistance with looking at their positions. The process started with an organizational meeting with the town manager and a review of many of your town materials. We then held orientation meetings with department heads and discussed the entire process with them, received input regarding communities to survey, and explained and distributed a position analysis questionnaire, or PAQ, that would then be provided to all the employees to complete. We also met with union representatives and received input from the union at that point, and then following, once some information was provided, we updated some based on additional input from the union. We developed both salary and benefit surveys for all of the positions. We utilized data that we received from 9 communities, 6 in Rhode Island, and 3 additional ones for Massachusetts that were somewhat similar with islands or of that nature. In order to start to become more competitive, in discussion with the town manager, and at the time had concurrence from town council, we developed the proposed paying classification plan at the 60th percentile of the market, with a goal in the future of moving towards the 75th percentile to become even more competitive. We reviewed job descriptions, the position analysis questionnaires to assist with establishing internal equity among all the positions. Throughout the process, an evaluation of 10 to 14 factors was conducted based on duties, responsibilities of the positions, and the evaluation had nothing to do with the performance of any of the employees currently holding the positions. The information that was provided by the employees on the questionnaires was also reviewed by their department heads, and they signed off that the information was all very accurate. We did update all of the job descriptions and put them in the same format as Word documents, so the town can easily update them in the future. And they've been provided under separate cover that aren't included in the actual final report. In the proposed pay plans, we did reduce the number of steps from 17, which was in the previous ones, to 12, which is more in line with best practices for employees to reach the end of their steps within a goal. There's a range from the minimum to the maximum step of 31%. And now between steps, there's a consistent 2.5% between each step. In the prior system, they were varied. It was not a consistent system. At the time of the report, there were 13 positions that ended up being below the actual minimum pay rate of step 1. Additionally, all the positions at that point were placed in the new grade levels that we proposed and steps that would not result in any pay rate lower than their current pay rate, and employees would enjoy new growth in the proposed pay ranges. At that point in time, with the data we had, the total proposed costs for all employees, both union and non-union personnel, was $244,161. That may have changed since that time. And of course, it could be implemented in a phased-in approach by the town, depending on budgeted funds available. We did look at the total compensation package for the town, which included both pay and benefits. And in the benefits, the town currently provides excellent primary benefits in the health, dental, deferred compensation plans compared to several of the other communities. However, it is recommended the town consider perhaps enhancing some benefits in order to become an employer of choice. Some of the enhancements we proposed included in the area of health insurance, increasing the opt-out incentive from $2,000 for individuals and up to $5,000 for family coverage. Based on what you pay for insurances, this still is a savings for the town as well as the employees that would go in that program. Vacation days could also be increased at the levels in the range of employees with 11 to 15 years of service to 20 days and 16 and above to 25 days. Also, life insurance, which you do provide, could be increased to 1 times the annual salary of an employee with a minimum amount of $50,000 and a maximum of $100,000. And that's a fairly low benefit cost to increase. Longevity, which the town currently does not provide a program. This type of program rewards the service of employees. As the longer they're in their positions, the more knowledge they have and skills they retain, and thus end up being more valuable to the town. So an option to consider to implement something such of that nature would be either a flat dollar amount or a percentage of salary based on intervals of 5 years, 5, 10, 15, something of that nature. And lastly, some towns are now moving towards starting to consider flat dollar retention bonus for all employees to recognize them and keep them within their organization, as well as some signing bonuses for extremely difficult, hard to fill positions. Lastly, in order to keep your classification and pay plans competitive with the market, it's recommended that you review them every 3 years, and cost of living increases should be added each year to the pay plans in order to assist with inflation and staying competitive with the current pay scale. All of the information I discussed is included in the final report, along with the various charts that we utilized during the course of the study in the appendix. And it has been a pleasure working with the town and everyone that assisted. Your town manager provided all us the information we needed. We had several meetings throughout the project that were very beneficial. And I think the study provides you with a good roadmap for having a competitive system in place and a fair and equitable one. And again, it's not focusing on individual performance of employees, but based on objective job analysis and what the market is showing now and what your competitors are having. So with that, it gives you kind of an overview of what we did. The project started and continued. We had several meetings back and forth, and everyone was very helpful, both town management as well as union, in providing and reviewing some data, giving us additional feedback for if they needed additional, which we did with some positions. We went back out and gained some additional, which was helpful in the final analysis. So with that, if you have any questions or additional thoughts, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Carol. Any questions from the council?
Well, I just want to make a clarification that when we had the meeting back in February, we weren't provided with any charts or any materials like we were last night. So we had an update from you back in February, but I just don't want anybody to think, I mean, I got this last night. I didn't finish working last night until 2 a.m. So I did not have time to read this. I don't know if anyone else had time to read it. I'm feeling a little behind on this because we haven't had an update since February, but that's just me, right? Maybe everyone else had plenty of time to read this. So.
I just figured I looked at my email late. We had numbers since February, didn't we?
The charts that you have in here are the charts that we started looking at back in February. Yeah.
But the last time we had numbers were
Yeah, that's what these charts all have.
February?
February 1st was the meeting that went through all the charts. Yes.
We've had meetings since then.
Oh, yes, we have with negotiations, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we've
Because
been
I
looking
know
at
the
it.
one that I said we all have to sign. I don't remember the date on it. Because I wanted to be sure everybody knew that we had all seen it, if it ever came up.
But that was negotiation materials and not the report.
Oh, I understand that, Molly. I'm just saying we've had meetings since February. I'm not really sure the report tells us a whole lot that we didn't hear just from skimming it. I have not had a chance to read it.
Well, it tells us that in some categories, we have, work to do and money to spend to get up to 60% and even more work to get up to 75% over time.
By which time that bar will have moved.
Yeah.
It's always the
Oh,
problem
totally.
with
Yeah.
following somebody else's standards.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a question about the org chart, and I'm sorry, I left my laptop at home, so if you would just bear with me for a second while I find it. Oh, you know what? Thank you so much, Millie. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and also want to
Go
make
ahead.
a point that I have made a number of times at various organizations. And granted, I am getting older, which is one of the reasons I'm not running anymore.
I'm feeling old
But
looking at trying to read this.
It's
chart.
virtually impossible to read something this size with white print on blue or with white print on orange, or there are some that are especially bad, or with red on black, which neuroradiologist, Mass General told me is the absolute worst you can get. And I got that the other day, which didn't, I thought, really, seriously.
So I did have a question about the organizational chart too, because I did look at that this morning. So underneath town manager, there's the long line with all the little boxes. Are those meant to be department heads? Or
The-
is it just a floaty structural?
This was based on the structure, and it's one that could be modified easily internally. As you see, it has it has attachments along the way with department heads, and then below department heads, those positions in there. It was requested to have the actual positions listed there, et cetera, which for this size, you really need a much longer to view it separately. But with putting it there, you can have it just simply with the titles. You can add additional, if you want to put names of employees in there, you can make it as expansive as you want or scale it back down based on what works best. And sometimes what organizations will do is they'll have a very detailed one and then they scale back for certain reports or whatever. So it can easily be modified to meet the needs you may have for different purposes.
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up on that, Molly?
Well, I just, I was just looking at like, I guess that with the way, these are people that report to town manager, right?
And that actually is my question, because it doesn't, and this is probably just a line that didn't get put in, but it doesn't appear to have those people reporting to the town manager. It appears to have them reporting to boards and commissions.
Right.
Can you see what I'm talking about, Carol?
Yeah, I see that now. It probably just needs a line down from the town manager to that level.
Because, many of, one of the beauties, I think, of our town government, to the extent you can point to any, is that there is one hopes, significant interaction between a lot of the boards and commissions and these town employees, but they report to the town manager.
Right, and I thought there was a line in there, it may be in the final iteration, the line came out, but it should be to the town manager.
So so the one that's throwing me a little bit is the emergency management director. On the same line as other people who are department heads.
I think
maybe
that might be because of the charter.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so reports to town manager,
Yeah.
but.
Is that
Right.
right, Bill? I'm pretty sure in the charter, that's how it's structured. Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And there might have been some things that didn't get flipped over that traditionally were town manager that would go into Public Works now because Public Works was town manager for so long. And even
Right.
if it says Public Works, I'm not sure if that's all filtered through yet.
I think that flowed through.
No, I meant to people.
Oh,
not-
the people, right. Yeah.
Not on-
Yeah. Thank you.
Old ways die hard.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is something that you can, if based on whether it's your charter or a change, you can always update this very easily to reflect the needs that you have there.
If it makes anybody feel better, we've been doing this since David Holt was our town manager and we had a retreat in the old Thomas house with, I don't remember if it was a whiteboard, if it was, and then you'd always have these rogue committees even back then, and where the heck does this fit? Everything seemed fine until you hit a point and then it just spiraled. Okay, they're fine.
So, I, I think everybody who's in this audience knows this, but, for me at least, and I think for others, but I would not presume to speak for others. The value of this study, and I do think it's valuable, is to get some actual data comparing us to there's no, look, there's no identical community to us, but to get some sense of where we fall so that there are enough obstacles to working here, and that are not necessarily directly compensation related, that we can control via hope to be able to control via policy over a number of years. But we wanted to make sure that our compensation system was competitive, both to ensure that people who currently have the jobs felt as valued as in terms of their compensation as we feel about them, but also to be on people's radar as a viable workplace choice when we have openings in a lot of these critical positions, which we do quite regularly, I would say. So for me, Carol, this was a very helpful educational exercise in addition to the actual work and ink committed to the paper. So I thank you and your colleagues for that.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm going to say this again because I've said it multiple times and it never seems to get anywhere. And I'm sure there are other people who feel the same way I do. I usually walk out of a meeting and people say, I'm glad you said that, or I'm glad somebody said that, or I get emails or texts because people do talk to me. I don't really care what the industry standard is. I don't really care what they do in corporate America. I want something that is legible. I don't know why, and I'm involved in other groups, not just government. It seems to be the thing to have, again, white lettering on orange, which is, it looks great in Mystic. They've got big letters. We're not Mystic. In this case, we've got white letters on blue. Blowing it up isn't really going to help. And I think if we're going to have something that's workable, it shouldn't be a task to read it. And I know I probably got the worst eyesight here, but I'm not blind. And that's something that really should go down in all of every organizational thing we have, everything that we put out. It should be, everyone wants to talk about accessible, but it's all good and well if it's accessible on the website. If you can't read it, it doesn't mean a darn thing.
So what do you need from us? No, at your last meeting, it's gonna be in the colors you want.
Yeah,
That's
the-
what we're gonna do, is you're going away. Sure, why not?
Oh, okay.
Why
The agenda
not?
says discuss.
Go
and
ahead,
act-
you wanna come up? I don't think so, because of the statute. The library is it's sort of own creation, if I recall correctly, under the Rhode Island. It's its own thing, where the town, for budgetary purposes, budgets for a lot of the costs associated with the library. But it's its own, for lack of a better description, chartered entity. And Martha may want to clarify that, but for the purposes of a layman like me, and similarly with the school, from financial town meetings and the budget, they're very separate, even though sometimes there is an ease of negotiating together. It's similar unions, but they are not the town doesn't supervise any of the Board of Education employees. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the library is run. Well,
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't report to the town manager.
the reason that
Sorry.
everything is run through the town is purely practical. I don't know if it's done other places. I don't know what's done other places now, but we, the town, could simply give the full amount of town appropriation to the library at the beginning of the fiscal year and say you're on your own. And the library would have to do all of its own payroll, all of its own taxes. It would have to get its own insurance. It would cost a lot more to run the library. And that's why the library has always been run the way it is. I can only speak to that part of it.
But school-wise, if I understand it correctly, if it were on the same piece of paper, it would be a separate organizational chart related. to
They'd be under the school committee.
Right. Does that make sense to folks? Even if it doesn't make sense, that's how the statute works. Yeah.
The aides at the school, and there are some town employees at the school.
So they're in the union, but I think they work for under the school committee.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Does that make, I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't even use that phrase because I don't know that it makes sense, but that's, as I understand it, how it works.
You want me to weigh in on that?
One sec. If you come up here. Yeah, please, Tim.
Hey, you were all correct. The school department is a separate entity, but it is a department of the town. So from a reporting standpoint, school employees report up through the superintendent to the school committee. And the town has no supervisory authority over the school department employees. The town issues or appropriates a budget overall, and the school committee determines how it spends its line items on its employees. But from a reporting structure, the supervisory authority rests with the superintendent and the school committee per state law and Rhode Island Constitution.
That was a lot better than my answer.
We said the same thing. I just used
You just sounded, you have a tie on, Tim. What's that? Well, that ain't hard. Anything else before I'm sorry, Marion, I interrupted you. I asked you a question, then I
It's just
interrupted you.
discuss
Sorry.
and act, so you can discuss, you don't necessarily have to act. It's up to you folks.
So the study is what it is, right? I don't, I mean, I'm happy to take any action if you want us to. I appreciate it.
I would accept the report.
Okay. Martha, can you make a motion to accept the report? Did you?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. Molly, will you second that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Just want to thank Carol for all her
Yes.
hard work on this.
Yeah.
It was a
Thank
great,
you.
it was a great process and a great
Thank
job
you,
that
Carol.
you did.
Thank
But-
you, Tim.
But how far are we from getting this settled locally?
That's all in negotiations. We have another negotiation scheduled.
You know, it's-
Have a motion to adjourn, please.
Thank you, everybody.
I just want to thank everyone for showing up today to, and I know that you all got this material as late as we got this material, but it's great information. So I hope everybody has a chance to read it.
All those in favor of adjournment indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Bill, good to see you. Good to see you.